Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf kaf dalid, and we had just finished the Mishnah on kaf gimel amabet, and then began the Gemara, which highlighted a conflict. And so, what are we talking about? So this should remind ourselves of the topic. So we're discussing a wife's mother-in-law, mother-in-law's daughter, namely her husband's sister, a co-wife, the husband's brother's wife, and the husband's daughter, meaning the stepdaughter. In all of these five cases, we say that these women are not believed to tell a wife that her husband died, because we're concerned that what will happen, the wife will think that she is no longer subject to the prohibitions of having relations with another man, and maybe she'll get married to somebody else, and then the husband will come back, and she will not be allowed to be back with her original husband. And which of course is the underlying purpose of what these women are trying to do. They're trying to get their stepdaughter, stepsister, stepmother, co-wife, potential competitive wife, in the case of the husband's brother's wife, if the husband's brother were to pass away without any children. All of these cases, these are potential rivals, and so as a result, that's why we won't believe them, and we're concerned that they're going to try and get rid of the wife. And so, however, we have when it comes to a divorce, we have a machlokas. Our Mishnah said that all five of these women would be believed because the written document provides evidence of their credibility. And then the Baraisa says, no, we're not going to trust them. So let's pick up with the Gemara. We'll read the first line of the Gemara over again as we highlight the question. Tanya, 1 second, you said in the Mishnah that these five women would be believed when it comes to a get, but we have a brisa that says that just as they're not believed to say that the husband died, they're similarly not going to be believed to say that the husband gave a get. So and to bring the get to the wife. So two now explanations of this, of answers to reconcile these conflicting statements. So Rav Yosef lo kashya. Rav Yosef says, no, there's not a problem. Kan ba'aretz, that in our Mishnah, when we say that they're believed, it's talking about when it's being brought within the land of Israel. Because when it's being brought within the land of Israel, we're not fully trusting them. Because and kan b'chutz la'aretz, whereas when the get comes from chutz la'aretz and they actually have to make the statement of b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, then we're really believing them. So as a result, we don't want to really believe them. So as a result, that's going to be a problem. So ba'aretz, when it's in the land, now we explain it. But when it's in the land, why are we willing to believe them? Delav adibura didaka samchinan, we're not relying on what they say. And so as a result, mehemna will trust them, meaning if in the end of the day they get challenged, we're not trusting what they say, we're not relying on them. But b'chutz la'aretz, when it comes to being they come from abroad, we effectively rely on their word. They are going to actually be believed. So lo mehemna, then we're not going to believe them. And Amar Alei Abaye says, no, it's the exact opposite. So again, when it comes to Rav Yosef's explanation, the question is, are the women saying something? And if they're saying something, well, then we can't trust them. And so when do they say something? They say something when they bring a get from outside of the land of Israel. Makes a lot of sense. But now we have Abaye. Abaye is also going to make a lot of sense. Indeed, the Gemara is going to say it makes even more sense, but it didn't, at least for me, come as naturally. So I'm going to set it up by highlighting what's the purpose? What is the concern that we say that these women are going to be are not going to be believed? The reason that they're not going to be believed is because they are trying to set up the wife to make a humongous mistake that will be unrepairable, namely by having an extramarital affair. That's the situation. And so When is it that Abaye says that we're not going to believe them? When that's possible, when there could be this trickery, that's the situation. So Amarle Abaye says to Rabbi Yosef, Adirabba, Ibcha Mistaber, to me, the opposite makes more sense. Ba'aretz, when it comes to in the land of Israel, Di Asi Bal Ma'ar Mashkichin Anbae, that if in fact the husband were to come, we would pay attention to him and thereby potentially allow the husband and wife to come back together. Well, that's going to be a really big problem if she has an affair, if she has relations. That's terrific. If she has relations with somebody else between them, because then she won't be allowed to go back to her husband. And so that's the situation we're going to be concerned about them telling the truth. So again, it's the exact opposite. Whereas, according to Rav Yosef, when they were in Israel, there's no statement by the women, and as a result, we can believe them. Whereas according to Abaye, there might not be a statement, but there's the opportunity for trickery. And that's what's going to upset us. We're worried that the woman, that these five different categories of women are going to try and ruin the life of the wife. So therefore, lo mehemna, therefore we're not going to bring them. But bechutz la'aretz, if in fact they come from Chutz La'aretz and they say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam, that it was written in front of them and it was signed in front of them, well, then it is a valid get. There is no concern about the wife coming back and being able to remarry her husband without a new wedding. And so as a result, the Asi Balma Arer, Lo Mishkachinan Bey. Therefore, if the husband comes to complain, we're not going to listen to him. We're not going to pay any attention to him. So therefore, Mehemna, we can believe them because there's no fooling in this situation. In this situation, there is no opportunity for the wife to make a humongous life-altering mistake. And that's what we're worried about. We're not worried about them just trying to get the wife to divorce. If they're just, and that's why if you have, we're going to have Rashi, yes. If we're going to have that document, then absolutely, if we have that document, then we can trust them because they're going to say, and it will be a validated divorce, and there will be nothing the husband can do. And as a result, they're going to be separated. And if in fact the wife has a relations with another man, that will prevent her from getting remarried to the man, but it won't. But there was no marrying the man anyway. So. And actually, if she doesn't get married, then if she just has an affair, she would be allowed to potentially marry the person. It's only when she actually gets married to somebody else, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. In any event, I wouldn't rely on that. Okay, so Tanya Kavase de Abaye, and so we say that we actually have a brisa that is taught like Abaye, because what does it say? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishum Rabbi Akiva. It was said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, Isha ne'emenes lahevi gita mikal v'chomer. A woman can be believed to bring her get from a kal v'chomer. That we can see that if one person is allowed to bring a get, well, then certainly the wife will be allowed to bring her own get from overseas. What's the situation? What's the kal v'chomer? That when it comes to women who are not trusted to say that the husband died, we say that they're allowed to bring a get, just as we've had in our Mishnah. The woman herself, who is believed to say that her husband died, ain't no din of course she should be believed to bring her own get. And now what do we say? And it comes from the place where she came, meaning malahalan, just as in that situation when it came to the five women, the women, the hostile women, would need to say that it was written in front of them and it was signed in front of them. She'll also, the wife also will have to say it was written in front of me and it was signed in front of me. Well, 1 second, which situation is it that the women need to say it was written in front of them and it was signed in front of them? That's only when they bring the get from overseas. So we can see that according to this brisa, the situation where we believe the women is when they bring it from overseas. The implication being that when we have a brisa that says we don't believe the women, that's when they bring it within Israel. And that is precisely Abaye's opinion. And Amar Rav Ashi says, Masnina nami deka dekatani, deka. You can also emphasize that from our Mishnah. You can derive that. You can see that from our Mishnah. A careful read of our Mishnah also supports that, because what does it say next? Dekatani, because the next line of our Mishnah says, Ha'isha atzma mevia gita, the woman herself needs to bring her get, but she has to say b'fanai nechtam. So when is it that she has to say b'fanai nechtam? Clearly, it is when she brings the get from overseas. So shma mina. So we've shown a good proof that it must be that it's talking about a situation where she's bringing the get from overseas. And so Abaye is clearly correct. And now we're going to ask on Rav Yosef. What was it Rav Yosef's Havamina? How did he think? How could he have thought that we were talking about a situation of that this situation was all in Israel? Because after all, the Rav Yosef, Reisha, when it came to the beginning of our Mishnah, which was actually in our Gemara's case, the previous Mishnah, and the previous Mishnah dealt with a situation where we said that a blind person is not allowed to bring a get. And we explained that the case of the blind person is not talking about a case of bringing it within Israel, but rather it's talking about a case of bringing it from overseas. And the reason that the blind person is not valid is because he is unable to testify that it was written in front of him and it was signed in front of him because he can't see. So as a result, the beginning of our Mishnah, or the beginning of this topic, was talking about a case where it was brought, the get was brought from overseas. The Seifa b'chutz la'aretz. And then clearly when we talk about the wife having to say b'fanei nechtam, it was also b'chutz la'aretz. It was also talking about a get brought from overseas. Mitziyasa ba'aretz. And yet, Rav Yosef, you want to say that the case between them, the case of the 5 women, where we say that she is believed, is a case where she brought it in the land of Israel? That seems unlikely. Why would we go back and forth? In fact, absolutely, your Rav Yosef would say that this, even though it's unlikely, that is the correct understanding. Reisha v'seifa b'chutz la'aretz, mitziyasa ba'aretz. When it comes to the beginning and the end, that is talking about chutz la'aretz, but the middle case of the 5 women, that is when it's talking about the get being brought in the land of Israel. Umimai. Well, 1 second. All right, if you're telling me that that's how Rav Yosef understands it, there's got to be something more to it. Why did he say that? So he made the following deduction. Midikatani. We can deduce it from the following. Ma bet lemisa. What did our Mishnah say? That what's the difference between a get case and the case of testifying about the husband's death? The difference is that the wife's is that these women's have a document that proves what they say. The lo katani, but what did we not say? We didn't reference shaksavu femochia. We didn't reference anything about their talking. And the fact that we didn't reference about their talking, so that for Rav Yosef tells us that we've changed the story. We've changed from talking about a case where the women bring the get from overseas to a case where the women bring the get from within Israel. So that is Rav Yosef's explanation. So again, we have 2 explanations of our Mishnah. Rav Yosef says that we're going to believe the women when they bring it within Israel because we don't have to trust anything they say. And he points to the fact that we say in our Mishnah that we're trusting them because of the written document. And if they come from overseas, we won't believe them because they have to speak. Whereas Abaye says, no, the question isn't about whether or not they speak. The question is about whether or not they're trying to trick and fool and cause ruination for the wife in the situation where they come from overseas. Although it is true that they have to speak, there is no way that they can ruin the wife's marriage. Because they are severing the marriage. They are not going to set the wife up for a problem that can't be solved, because they are going to they're going to sever the relationship completely. Whereas in the land of Israel, if they bring it from within the land of Israel, well, then because the husband could complain and undo their work, well, then it is possible for just like if the husband comes and it turns out that he's not dead, and it will undo their work. So, but it will lead to a problem if the woman has had relations with somebody else, because then she'll have had an affair, and that will cause them to have to divorce. And so that is what these wicked women are after. And so as a result, that's why we're not going to believe. And so according to Abaye, we will believe if they are coming from outside the land of Israel, but we won't believe if they're coming from within the land of Israel. Okay, so those are the two views. And again, we, according to Rav Ashi, we have really provided significant support to Abaye's position. Okay, so now we are going to analyze this case of Ha'isha Atzma Meviyah, that the woman herself will bring the get and she will say, B'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam, because why in the world would she need to do it? And let's start this Gemara because it's going to ask the question. Isha mikimate gita liyada igar shala. If she's coming from overseas with the get in her hand, she's already divorced. She has the get, she's divorced. So how could it be that she's coming to our court and having to say that the document was written in front of her and signed in front of her? She's already divorced. She shouldn't need to say anything. So 6 efforts to try and explain this. The first 4 will all be at least partially rejected, and then the final 2 will be accepted. So Amar Rav Huna ba Omer lo tiskar shiri Bo Ella Bifnei based in Ploni. It's talking about a situation where the husband says, you are not divorced until you go to the following court. And so as a result, until she goes to the court, she's not going to get divorced. And the initial thought must be when she gets to the court, she's going to have to say, B'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. But that doesn't work because sovki macha hasam igar shaba. Well, all she needed to do was get to the court. And so as a result, that can't be it. That's not the case. And by the way, we're not going to offer the possibility of the husband saying that you need to go to the court and say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam, because that's sort of a silly case. Of course, in that situation, if he sets it up as a condition, then it would be the case. But we're talking about where there seems to be a halakhic requirement for her to say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. So let's look at case number 2. So Ella Amar Rav Huna bar Manoach mishmei de Rav Acha brei de Rav Ika. So they say the Amar law that we're talking about where the husband says, Kimatis Hasam, when you get to that court, Asneche A'ara Vishkal Shaklei, put it down on the ground and then pick it up. And the thought is that she's a messenger to put it on the ground. And so as a result, as a messenger, she's going to need to say B'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam, and then she'll pick it up as the wife and everything will be fine. And that will explain our situation. But that doesn't work either because ihachi havale tuli gitech me al gabe karka. At the end of the day, the husband is telling the wife, pick up the get off the ground, and that's how you're going to be divorced. Well, you know what? Va'amar Rabba says tuli gitech me al gabe karka lo amar klum. If you tell your wife to pick up a get, you have not done anything. You need to give that get to her because it says in Nasan, we have to have a giving. And here there's no giving. She's just picking up. And so as a result, that doesn't work either. So now we're on to case number 3. Ella de Amar, so it must be the following. The Amar law, the husband says to his wife, Havi shaliach laholacha ad demas. You are my messenger until you get there. And then when you get there, you'll effectively have received it from yourself as the messenger. And when you get there, you'll be your own messenger. You will receive your get on your own behalf. All right, but that doesn't work either because the agent, the messenger has not gone back to confirm their completion of the job. And we will see, let's take a look in Rashi. This is Rashi about midway down. V'halo chazra shlichus eitzel habal. Shliach lo mikri, she's not called a messenger. Somebody is not going to be called a messenger. Ella hamishtalech mizelazet, except for somebody who brings something from one person to another. Shiroi l'chzor etzel sholcho belomer asiti shluchatech. But lechavracha. But it requires that the messenger be able to go back to the sender and say, I fulfilled your obligation. Okay, while this person is still a messenger. Bizu eina re'uya lachzor. But this person is not able to go back and say that she was the messenger because shaharei lo nishtalcha ela la'atzma. She's sending it to herself. Va'achar kach nazes he bal hamaseh. And by the time when the moment she finishes her job as shliach, she is no longer the shliach, but she is a party to the matter. Ubatel hashlichus kodem shetachzor. And so as a result, her status as a shliach has become eliminated before she has ever had a chance to go back to be to return and tell the husband that she's done the job. So according to Rashi, the key element here is that you need, and everybody's going to agree with this key element, that you need to be able to go back to the sender and say, I did the job before something else. Rashi here is saying it's before she becomes a party to the matter. Tosos, in a careful read of this Gemara, says, no, it's not that like that. It's a very subtle difference, but let's take a look. V'halo chazra shlichut, top Tosos, shliach lo mikri, she's not called a shliach, ela hamishtalech mizelizet. That's almost identical language to Rashi. Shiroi lachzor l'sholcho lomar asis shluchasech. And she is because she needs to be able to go back and say, I did your shlichut. But here's the difference. For Rashi, it was before she becomes a party to the matter. But Tozo says, no, it's kodem sheyaseh shliach la'acherim, before she can be a messenger for somebody else. And what did the husband tell her to do? The husband told her to be her own messenger, but she can't be her own messenger because she's right now the husband's messenger, and she can't convert to being the husband's messenger until she's been able to go back to the husband and tell her that she finished the job. But she can't finish the job until she becomes her own shliach. So that's the problem, according to Tosos. So according to, and then Tosos concludes, so he says, he highlights that this is a subtle difference. For Rashi, it's because she became a principal, but for Tosos, it's because she became her own agent, and she can't become an agent for somebody else. So whatever it is, the bottom line is our third approach doesn't work either. So now we go to approach number 4. Approach number 4 says the following. To Amar law, so the husband said to her, be my messenger to bring the get over to that other court until you get there. And when you get there, appoint another person to be a messenger for you to receive it. So the odd thing is that the woman will have another person serve as her own messenger, and she'll serve as the husband's messenger. Well, that can work according to some people, but it doesn't work according to everybody. That works according to the opinion that a woman is allowed to appoint an agent in order to receive her get, miyad shliach bala, in order to receive the get from the hand of the husband's agent. But there's another opinion, and that opinion says that you're not allowed to use an agent to pick up the get from the husband's agent. And how would that person work this situation? In this situation, that's exactly what's happening. And that person says, and this opinion says, that that's not allowed. Well, the Gemara tries to resolve that and says, Taima, why? Taima mai. What's the reason? Why is it that you're not allowed to do that, according to the opinion that says that the woman's not allowed to appoint a shliach to receive the get from her husband's shliach? Mishum de'ika b'zayin debal. Well, presumably it's because of some disgrace that she's causing the husband, that she's not receiving it herself. V'hacha ba'al lo kapit. But here, it's clear the husband doesn't have a problem with it because he has told her to appoint a shliach. So therefore, it should be allowed. Well, again, Amar Mishum Bizayon Devaal. Well, that works according to the one who says that the reason is because we're worried about the husband's disgrace as a result of her appointing an alternative shliach. But El Amanda Amar Mishum Chatzera Habala Acher Mikain. But if we're worried about the concept of the husband not delivering the get directly to the wife. So what is that about? As a reminder, we heard about this situation a few days ago. If the husband puts a get in some third party's property, and then the wife acquires that third party's property, that is not a valid acquisition of the get, because when the husband put it in the property, it wasn't already the wife's. If in fact the husband put it in the wife's property directly, well, then it's a valid get. It goes into her chutzner. She takes ownership. It's as if it goes directly from the husband to the wife, because it says v'nasan. We have to have a giving that goes from the husband to her. So my ikalamemer. But in that situation, what is there to say? So now we've rejected possibility number 4. Now, again, possibility number 4 works according to the one who says that a woman's allowed to appoint an agent, and it works according to the one who says that they can't appoint an agent because the husband's going to be offended, but it doesn't work according to one opinion, and we need a view that it works according to everyone. So to Amr Allah, so we have case number 5. What's case number 5? Heavy shliach laholacha ad dematis hasam. So the husband says, you'll be my agent until you get to the court. And when you get there, shavi shliach laholacha, appoint somebody else to finish the delivery. The kabli eskitech mine, and then you accept the get from that person. Now, how does that resolve the issue of halo chazra shlichos eitzel abal? It resolves it in the following way. When the wife goes and gives it to Aaron the agent, well, when Aaron the agent is now holding it, it is technically possible for the wife to return to the husband and say, I have completed your job, because she has completed the job. She's handed it over to Aaron. And so as a result, whether you understand it like Tosos or you understand it like Rashi, she has not yet become the principal. She has not yet become an agent for somebody else. And so as a result, she can go back to the husband and say that she's done. So therefore, it's a valid shliach. And then she's taking it on her own. And of course, she's the one who saw it written and signed. And so she's the one that will testify in court that she saw it written and signed. All right, the e-bias ema, or alternatively, you can say the following case. And now this case is so similar that Tosos is going to ask, what's the difference? And we'll look at that Tosos in a moment. But I want to highlight that the similarity, because you'll probably think, oh, wow, what's the difference? So heavy shliach laholacha ad dematis hasam. If, again, the husband says, you be my shliach until you get to the court in Eretz Yisrael, evichimatis hasam, emar Kame Beitina, and when you get there, you can tell them, you could say to them, it was signed in front of me, and it was written in front of me, and it was signed in front of me. So umashri Beitina shaliach, and then the Beis Din, because you'll have given the divorce to the Beis Din, lisvuha nalech, they'll give it to you. Or they'll make umashri beidina shaliach. The Beis Din will then appoint an agent, and they'll give it to you. So bottom line is, the only difference in this is who's appointing the agent and the fact that the Beis Din actually takes possession of it. So what's the chiddush? So Tosos asks that. Kitzas tema mali Beis Din. What's the difference between whether it's her that appoints the last shliach or the Beis Din? Why in the world are we saying that this is a different answer? The Shem and Lashon Zeh Chalak Lashon Rishon. Maybe this language was different from the earlier one. De Belishna Kama, when it came to the first case, Eina Omeris B'fanei Nektav Ella B'Shasha Tikablanu. The only time, when does she say B'fanei Nektav or B'fanei Nektam? She ends up saying it when she receives the get directly. Afal Gav, the Perek Kol get, when we'll see later on in the next Perek, that in fact that situation is that we say that when does the person testify Two, it was written in front of me and it was signed in front of me. We see that in general, we wait until the get leaves the hand of the shliach. So Shema Hacha Sheyachola Lomar B'Shas Gerushin Adav Tei. But maybe it's better to actually wait, as we have in case number 5, for the wife to wait to actually say it until the moment that the get is delivered to her, and that we should actually have her wait because she's the one who's saying it. And so as a result, she will be there and present at the receipt when there's a difference in time between when it leaves the hand of the shliach and when it goes to the woman herself. If the person who's the agent is going to be present, maybe we should wait to say b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtam. And so therefore, the 6th case tells us, no, she does not need to wait until that last moment. She can even say it just like every other agent at the moment it initially leaves her hand. So that's Tosos' explanation. And with that, Hadron Halacha maybe get, Hadron Halacha maybe get, Hadron Halacha maybe get, we are done with the second perek of Maseches Gittin. And now we continue with the third perek. And the third perek is going to open with a discussion of the concept of lishma. So let's take a look, and we'll see 4 different cases in our Mishnah. Any get that is not written for the specific wife is invalid. Ketzad, tell me some examples. So let's take a look. You can imagine this case. A man is walking in the marketplace, and he hears some scribes practicing their writing. We'll see that this is not a situation where they're actually writing a get; they're just practicing. So what happens? This man who's walking through the marketplace hears somebody say, Ish ploni megarish plonis mimakom ploni. This man in this place is going to divorce this woman in this place. Amar, and the man says, Zeshmi, Zeshem ishti, this is me. It's as if they're telling me it's a sign from God that I should get divorced. Well, pasul legarishbo, you're not allowed to use that divorce document to get divorced, because that document was not written with the specific intention of this man and this woman. Indeed, it wasn't written with any intention to divorce at all, as we'll see in the Gemara. Yes, or Mikain, moreover, not only in that case is that not going to work, but because of legarish ishto, a man writes to divorce his specific wife, the nimlach, and then he changes his mind. Mitzao beni ro va'amrlo, he finds somebody else in his city, and he says to them, Shmi kishimcha, my name's like yours. The shem ishti kishem ishticha, your wife, my wife's name is like your wife's name. And so why don't you use my get and divorce your wife if you need to? Pasul garishbo. No, that is not going to work. It is not valid to divorce the second man, for the second man to use that to divorce his wife. Yasser Mikain. Moreover, not only in that case, but hayu lo shtei nashim ushmosei and shavos. You have a man who's married to 2 women, both who happen to have the exact same name. Boy, that must be a confusing household. Well, Kasav Legarish as a Gedola, he ends up writing a divorce for the older one. Velo Yigarish Bo as a Katana, he cannot use that get to divorce the younger one. So even though they have the same name, and even though they have the same husband, and even though they have the same place, it wasn't written specifically for this wife, and so therefore he's not going to be allowed to use it. Yes, Sir Mikain, not only that, but Amr Lalavlar, if the man says to the scribe, listen, Ksov Le'ezo She'ertzagirsh, I'm not sure which of these 2 women who have the exact same name I want to divorce, but I'm going to want to divorce one of them, I'm sure. So write it for both of them, and I'll decide later which one I want it to be for. Pasul legarishbo. That also does not work. You need to be specific. So now let's take a look. So in the second case, we said, Kasav legaris is ishtov nimla. The man wrote the get and he changed his mind. Well, the elaresha b'mai. Isn't the first case also talking about? Now, of course, again, I explained the first case as not talking about it, but if you just read the language, the first case of the Mishnah was a man heard in the marketplace that the get was written for this man from so and so place to this woman in that place, and now the person was going to try and use it. So wasn't it originally written for another person who must have changed his mind? So why isn't that any different? Bella Resha b'mai. So Amar Papa, no, it is different. Besofrim ha'asuyin lehislam made askinan. We're not talking about where the get was written with any specific person. Yes, it was mentioned the specific name, but really there was no person thought of in connection with the get. And so as a result, there was no one that was had in mind. So Amar Ravashi Dekanami, in fact, you can actually understand this, and it is implied by the language, because what did our Mishnah say? The Katani Sofrin Makrin. It said that the scribes are dictating. The Lo Katani Sofrin Korin. They weren't reading. Meaning, the point is that if they were reading, so then they would be reading out a valid get. But they're just making things up. They're just dictating to others what should be written. So Shema Mina. So in fact, that shows that our case in our Mishnah is not, in fact, about the first case in our Mishnah is not about a husband who changed his mind. That's the second case. The first case in our Mishnah is about a husband who happened to overhear scribes practicing, and they happened to be practicing with his name. So my Yasser Mikain. Now we change the topic and we say, okay, listen. Each of these cases, you sort of indicated that there was some greater chiddush in each of the preceding cases. So explain what you meant. So Tana Debei Rabbi Yishmael. So this is what was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael. Lo zed shenichtav shelo lishum gerushin. You have the first case where the get was not written for anyone's divorce. So Ella af zesh nichtav l'shum gerushin pasol. Well, not only is that going to be invalid, but even in the second case, where it was written for a specific divorce, it was just written for a different man and a different woman. The lo zesh nichtav shelo l'shum gerushin didei. Moreover, not only in a case where it wasn't the right husband, where it was written the first time for a wrong husband and a wrong wife, but even if the husband's the right husband, but the wife, the man has two wives with the same name, and so he was originally thinking to give the wife to the older one, and then he ends up giving to the younger one. So in that case, also it's not going to be valid. So that's again the additional concept. So not only is it have to be for him, but it has to be for her. And not only that, but you could say, well, it's not for this, and the fourth teaching says not only when it's written not for this particular woman, but even if it was written in the fourth case, where it was specifically written for this divorce, it just wasn't clarified who the woman was. So in the end, though, it is clarified. So as a result, we again say that all of those cases are invalid. All of those are cases of not having lishma. So my time, what is the reason? So let's take a look and we'll see. So ikasa v'nasan sefer Christus biyada. If the Torah had just said that he has to give the divorce document into her hand, hava amina, I might have thought lema'ute hekama, that it has to have been written as a divorce document, but it excludes the case where the scribes were just practicing. Delo avid l'shum Christus, because that case where they were just practicing, it wasn't written for a divorce at all. But aval kasav legarish es ishto v'nimla. But if you have a get that was written for a particular couple and that couple reconciled, maybe we would say that get should be valid. The avid l'shum Christus, it was made for a divorce. Ema kosher. I might have said that get should be kosher. So kasav rachmana v'kasav. That's why the Torah had to say it was written. The kasav v'nasan. It was written and it was given as a sefer Christus biyada. It has to be written by the man who is giving the get, either by him directly or at his request directly. It can't be something that was taken from someone else. Well, ikasav rachmana v'kasav, but one second, if the Torah were to say v'kasav hava, if it just said v'kasav, and not the kasav law, as we'll see, I might have thought lemute haidelo ihika kasav law, that when it comes to the situation where the husband that it's coming to exclude the case where it was written for one husband and wife, and then they changed their mind, and now it is going to be used by a different husband and wife, so that won't be valid. But if we have aval yesh lo shtei nashim, but if a man has two wives with the same name, de'iu kakasiv lot, where he is the one who wrote the get, ema kasher, I might think that it would be kosher. Therefore, kasav Rahman Allah lishma. Therefore it says because of law that it has to be written for the specific wife. Okay, v'seifa lamali. So when second, in the last case, in the end, it was written for the specific wife, because at the end of the day, we know who it was intended for, because it was intended for potentially two people. And so at least, even though it wasn't specifically for this one, how do I know that that's not valid? So hakamash malan de'ein breira. So we learn from here that there is no breira. There's no post facto clarification. And we're going to talk about that, I believe, a little bit more tomorrow. So kasav legarish as a gadola below yigarish as a katana. So we said one of the cases in our Mishnah was you divorced the older one. You wanted to first divorce the older one. You can't use it to divorce the younger one. So katana hu delo masi megarish bay. So what's the implication? That he's not allowed to use this get to divorce the younger one. But he could, Hagadola, Matzi Megarish Bay. If he kept his mind, if he did not change his mind, he would be allowed to write the get for the older one. Even though, what's the problem? The problem is the man has two wives with the exact same name.
It doesn't make sense.
I know it doesn't make any sense. Nobody would want to do that. But in any event, he gives a divorce document to one of them. How do we know that which one's right? Exactly. How do we know which one he gave it to? Just because one of them comes to us in court with the get document and says that she was the one divorced, maybe the husband gave it to the other one and she just dropped it, and the other woman said, "Oh, I want to get divorced. I'll pick it up." So how do we know that? So Rava, so obviously the answer is we just assume that whoever's holding it is valid. So Rava says that this teaches us an important concept, that Shnei Yosef and Shimon, Hadar and Be'ir Echad. If you have two people with the exact same name, and for example, Yosef and Shimon as the name is chosen here, Motzi and Shtarchov Alacherim, they have the ability to bring out a document and that says that somebody owes them money. And that person can't say, "What are you talking about? I don't owe you money. I owe the other Yosef and Shimon money." And you, because one might have thought that you would need to be able to prove that you're the Yosef ben Shimon that's written on the document. And the answer is that the possession of the document, this is what Rav is teaching, the possession of the document is sufficient. So Amrle Abaye says, I don't know, that doesn't work for me. Because Elamiata, if what you are saying is true, then that would imply a problem and a conflict with another situation. Because Reisha Diktani, what was the situation where we had a husband and wife of the same name? We said the following: Shmi kishimcha, right? The man tells the other person, "I have the same name as you, and your wife has the same name as my wife." And we said parish legarishbo. The second couple is not allowed to use it to divorce. Sheni hu delo matzin legarishbe. The implication is that the second one is not allowed to divorce. Harishon matzin legarishbe. That implies that the first couple, the original couple, even though they have the same name as another couple in the same community, they are allowed to use those documents to divorce. But we have a problem, because if you're going to analogize divorce to monetary matters, we have a Mishnah that says the following: when we had that case of Yosef ben Shimon, we said that another person, so for example, if there were two people named David Schwartz, and there are a lot of people named David Schwartz, well then if Mark had a loan document and he said that I borrowed money from him, I would be able to tell, he would not be allowed to collect, because I could tell him, "You didn't borrow money from me, David Schwartz. You borrowed money from a different David Schwartz." So we have a conflict, because our Mishnah suggests that Mark should be
the other David Schwartz.
I know. Well, tough luck. That's going to be tough luck, but we don't want to say tough luck. So we're going to say that we're going to differentiate. So Ella, my islacha lameimar ba'edi mesira. So the true explanation is that why is it that the original couple is allowed to get divorced, even though we have in the monetary situation that Mark would not be allowed to make a claim against me, David Schwartz, because there are lots of other David Schwartzes, and I could say that it's a different David Schwartz that he has in mind.
Could be the Riverdale Temple.
Exactly, could be a David Schwartz at the Riverdale Temple, for example. So Ella, my Islas on the Maimar, 100%, exactly, or the Riverdale Jewish Center. But Ade Masira. So the key is that it must be that we're talking about Ade Masira. That when it comes to the get, what matters is the and this is according to Rabbi Lazar, but Rabbi Lazar that it's the gets witnesses to the delivery. And why is that key? Because the witnesses to the delivery know which husband and wife are the ones that are getting divorced. And so as a result, they can testify to which husband and wife are the right ones. So Hachanami Ba'adi Masira. So too, when we're talking about, in our case, it's talking about the witnesses to the get's delivery for Rabbi Lazar. And so that is why, even though over there, so now as a result, we can say the following. Our case in our Mishnah does not prove anything about whether or not two people in a city where there are two people named Yosef and Shimon, they are allowed to make a claim. Because in the end of the day, what is validating the contract in our Mishnah is the two witnesses who see it actually being delivered from the husband to the wife. And so because they see the delivery from the husband to the wife, they are the ones who are able to testify it was this husband and this wife that got divorced. And so as a result, that is why that's going to be valid. And as a result, we can't prove anything to a monetary situation. And so as a result, in a monetary situation, it won't be enough for Mark to have a document. He's going to need witnesses that say, oh, but I have witnesses that saw you, David Schwartz, borrow money from me. Then he'll be able to collect. All right, so we'll pick up with there, God willing, tomorrow. And our Mishnah, we said that all the divorces were not valid, right? We said that all of these divorces with these documents that were not written specifically for the right woman are all invalid. But we're going to see tomorrow that there's an aspect of these documents that have a real life impact. Really, that the wife who receives such a document is going to become prohibited to a Kohen immediately. So even if the husband were to die before a proper get can be given, she won't be considered just as an almana, just as a widow, but she'll be considered a grusha, a divorcee who's not allowed to marry a Kohen. So if you want to hear the details for that, please stay tuned tomorrow, and Shabbat Shalom. We'll pick up, God willing, approximately an hour before Mincha. And so keep an eye out. I believe that I am going to end up covering for Shabbos. And so stay tuned for tomorrow's daf. I wish everyone a Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos all.
Good Shabbos.